Hi there everyone, welcome back to my video channel, Mismatched Trish. If you want to see more videos from me, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Today I'm going to be talking about I'm kind of having trouble with what to call these. I guess nonfiction books about Christianity and books of the Bible. I've watched a lot of other videos about nonfiction Christian texts, and I think this one is quite a bit different. For one thing, a lot of these texts are more scholarly work. They're not necessarily written by or for Christians, more for people who want to know more about background, missing texts from the Bible, things outside of the canonical texts. And that's the other thing. A lot of these aren't directly related to what we think of as the Old and the New Testament. A lot of these are referencing books that, for one reason or another, were not used in the Bible. So now that that very long introduction is out of the way, I'm going to start here with the books that I do have. These are just books that I've read in 2021. I am going to be looking at my phone a couple of times because some of the books I checked out from my local library, so I don't have them here with me, so I'm going to make sure that I'm giving you the title and the author's name correctly, so I will be looking at my phone to reference Goodreads. So first off, the ones that I have, this one, I know the text is backwards, but if you can't read it, it's called The Gnostic Gospels by Elaine Pagels. I might be saying that wrong. Pagels, perhaps. This is a little bit different than what I was expecting when I got it. I got it for free at a local library. They had it in a box of books that for whatever reason they weren't going on the shelf. I think that might be because this is an older edition. When I've looked this book up online, it has a different cover than this one. And this one, it doesn't necessarily cover the text themselves, the Gnostic writings. What it covers is it talks about some of the beliefs that people who followed the Gnostic Gospels had. So, for example, the chapters in this are called The Controversy Over Christ's Resurrection, Historical Event or Symbol, One God, One Bishop, The Politics of Monotheism, God the Father, God the Mother, The Passion of Christ and the Persecution of Christians, Whose Church is the True Church, and Gnosis, Self-Knowledge as Knowledge of God. So those are the topics that this book covers. Like I said, it doesn't have the text themselves, which was what I was thought that I was getting. I will probably read this again sometime after I've read some of the texts that were referenced in this book, which I've actually already done. I've read one of them, and I'll mention that later on in this video. Again, these are books that I've read this year. And then the next one, this is not one that I've actually read myself. It's on my to-be-read list or my TBR list, but it's called Lost Books of the Bible by William Hone. You can't read the writing really, but I hope the cover helps. This covers a lot of the Gnostic Gospels as well as books of the Bible that were omitted from the final text. Some examples of them include the Gospel of the Birth of Mary, the Gospel of Nicodemus, the Acts of Paul and Thecla. I'm totally saying these names so wrong. The Epistle of Ignatius to the Ephesians, First Book of Hermas, Visions, and the Lost Gospel according to Peter. Those are just some of them. There's a whole lot. They're listed right. I know this is completely useless, but this is a list of them, so you can see how many texts are in this one. I'm actually really looking forward to this one. The reason I haven't read it yet is just because I've got so many other books, especially those I've checked out from the library that I've been wanting to read that I've been focusing on instead, since I actually own this one. I actually got this at Barnes & Noble for super cheap. The original price, no, it doesn't say. It doesn't have the original price on it. But I do remember I bought it out of like the bargain shelves at Barnes & Noble. So it was less than $10. I can't remember the exact price, but like I said, it was a really good deal. Love the bargain shelves at bookstores. You never know what you're going to find. So those are the only two that I actually own. So the other ones that I've read this year, the first one was, or the next one I should say, not the first one, Who Wrote the Bible by Richard Elliott Friedman. Now, the title is misleading. I think it was, you don't call it clickbait when it's a book, but essentially it was clickbait. What it really covers is the first 5 books of the Bible. Traditionally, they were attributed to Moses, and what Richard Friedman does in his work is that he explores what's known as the documentary theory, which suggests that there were actually multiple writers of the first 5 books of the Old Testament. I think it's called the Pentateuch. I know, I'm saying these all kinds of incorrectly. So it focuses on the Pentateuch, the first 5 books of the Bible that were traditionally credited to Moses. They claim Moses wrote, Leviticus. No, I'm sorry, not Leviticus. I'm so bad at this. I apologize. Genesis, Exodus, Numbers, and the other ones. I've got my Bible up on the phone. I could look it up, but the first 5 books of the Bible. And it basically picks apart which parts Richard Friedman believes were written by different authors, and he gives the argument for why they were written in the time and in the place where he believes that they were written by. And he even offers some hypotheses, in some cases down to the name of who he thinks actually wrote those particular parts of the text. And then as well as who actually compiled all the separate texts and edited into what we now know as those books of the Bible. Is really good, really fascinating. I actually wasn't aware that those 5 books were supposedly credited to just one author. So it probably made me a little biased in thinking that the documentary theory is what makes the most sense. But Friedman does make a really good argument for it. I think it's a really great book for really anyone who's interested in biblical history, or even just ancient history, really, because these texts give us, the author goes into detail about what the texts tell us about the time when they were written, culturally as well as historically. So it's not just a book for Christians. I think a lot of people will get, anyone who's interested in history and literature, especially ancient history and literature, will get a lot out of this book. The next one, this is the last one. The final one is called The Gospel of Judas by Rodolphe Kasser. This one, it was a fairly short read. It was interesting, not mind-blowing, but I really did find the information interesting. And what it talks about is the Gospel of Judas, which we had known about apparently for some time because it had been referenced by clergy and by people in the early church. And it's usually considered to be a Gnostic gospel. But what it is, it has an introduction. It's not just the gospel text, but it includes that too. It has an introduction about what we knew about the Gospel of Judas, what led to us discovering this gospel. It's kind of history after it was found, why it took so long to come public, and then some information about when it was made public and what led up to that. It also goes into not translation exactly, but kind of an explanation of what's being talked about in the gospel. If you're not aware, just a little bit of background, the Gospel of Judas is not credited to Judas, the apostle. We're not really sure who wrote it, but it was believed to be written, I think, about 100 years, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, around 100 years after Jesus lived. So it was too late for Judas to have written it, right? Because according to what the Bible says, Judas died immediately after Jesus did. So obviously it wasn't written by him, but what it is it's the information that Jesus gave to Judas. And so that's why his name is in the title of the gospel. Basically, I don't want to get too much into it because I'm worried I'm going to explain things wrong or get the facts mixed up. But what it is that Jesus is not who the apostles thought that he was. He was from a higher God, and he had actually asked Judas to turn him in because this was going to help him return to where he had come from. So it puts Judas in a slightly different, a very different light than what we've traditionally believed. It's really, really interesting. And then, of course, it does have the actual text, well, the translated text of the gospel. So you can read for yourself what it's been translated into English as. The downside with this book is that because of age, because of mishandling, the texts weren't always well reserved, so large portions of it are missing, which is kind of disappointing. I would like to know what those missing parts said. So you'll notice throughout the text there's ellipses, and sometimes as much as, I think, like 25 lines are missing from the text, and that's kind of mind-blowing. Like, this whole text, changed a lot of people's minds. What would happen if those missing parts were still in the text? It's just crazy to think about. All right, well, that's all the books that I've read on religion, nonfiction books that I've read on religion this year. Let me look at my list just to make sure. Yeah. On the Christian religion is what I should specify, because these are all related to the Old and the New Testament. If you have recommendations for other books you think I should read, please post them in the comments below. If there's more videos that you'd like to see in the future, I'm always looking for ideas, so please post your suggestions again in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the like button and come back for more. Everyone, thank you so much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.